Thank you for joining us today as Fox Cried, a project supported in part by the DC Commission on the Arts and Humanities and the Center for Unearthed Stories visits the archive. In continuation of our series at the Center for Unearthed Stories archives housed at the University of Minnesota, I am really happy to present Dorothy Diaz. Dorothy Diaz is our archivist in residence. Dorothy, could you speak a little bit about your area of research and your specialization and why you chose to come here specifically to the Center for Unearthed Stories archives?
Yes, absolutely. I have my PhD in mythological creatures and fairy tales, among other things, but that was just kind of the crux of my studies and research, and I've really become fascinated by the objects the objects that inspired the stories. Mm-hmm. Yes, and I'm very excited to see these things that I've really just read about and knew that they were real, and now I'm getting to see them in real life and discovering a whole new layer to my research that I've done.
Yeah, I do think that's something we're very proud of in our outreach, is seeing some of these objects come to life, right, if you will. And I think it's especially exciting that you're able to make some of the connections for us that make an object, it's okay if I handle this, to make an object like this come to life. So I would say there's an obvious sort of referential quality of this shape, and yet the construction is really quite baffling. So can you tell us what you've been able to find out about this object?
Yes, well, to say, the panel the other day, we were talking about this object in particular.
This is the panel at the third annual symposium.
Right, exactly.
Okay. Yes.
And it was really exciting, and I actually, it was a story that I hadn't read in a very long time, Joanus and the Clapper. And I was very excited to kind of dive back into that story because it was actually really earlier on in my research and studies. So I hadn't looked at this story in a really long time. So anyways, this is really...
I'm sorry, can you give us a little background on that story for those of our audience that were not at the symposium?
Yes, absolutely. So Joanus and the Clapper is a story about a young boy named Joanus, and he's calling to his friends, the birds. So this actual object in real life was actually a tool to call birds, and it was used more in a hunting. But this story kind of turned this object around, and he was calling to use his friends, the birds and the turkeys. And it ended up being kind of a Thanksgiving story as they gather at the end of the day and have a meal together, and they end up drawing each other, and they realize that he's calling his friends, the birds, with clapping noises, and then he actually ends up drawing the turkey.
Yeah, and exactly. This is where, what is the line? Portrait of turkey.
Right.
That's what he says.
Yes.
After
drawing
turkey.
Portrait of turkey. Then that's really where that tradition in America comes. And then also why this is a recreation of the original object that was not as much of a hand. I mean, and also you can kind of see that this finger is quite smaller, and I mean, if you just added a little thing, you could see the little...
the goblet.
Yeah, the goblet.
Yeah. Can you show us the functionality of this? You said that it was used with the implicit purpose was celebratory, but you mentioned that it was used for hunting.
Yes. Yeah. It was a hunting noise because again, it was a little bit, the original was a little bit wider, so it made more of a sound of a bird flapping its wings. So it was really instead of a bird call with, you've heard of the tools where you use it and it sounds like a voice. Well, this was more of the wingspan.
So that was meant to imitate the...
Yeah, so that it was okay to fly.
Okay. Okay.
And then it changed. And again, that story really put this in a positive light, changed the shape completely to be a more fun, playful object in which use in recreational.
Yeah. It's something that came to light again, and I'll just go back to the panel discussion we had, was how many lives this object has had. It was associated with drug subculture in Berlin in the 1980s. It holds connections to the sport of bowling.
Yes.
There are the celebratory associations that you described, and then of course the story, probably the most well-known story of Jonas and the Clapper. So thank you. Thank you for bringing that out for us.
Yeah.
It's really filled in a lot of gaps for our audience that were at the panel, and also for our audience that are just watching today. Dorothy, thank you for being here.
Well, thank you for having me, and I'm really excited to be here for the next few months.
It's been a pleasure, and we'll enjoy every moment of it. Thank you.